Multitasking, is it good or bad for you? That's what this podcast is going to be all about. Now, I just want to give you an example. Let's say, I'm sure you've experienced this scenario. You're sitting in your office and you're doing your work, and you suddenly get a phone call. Your friend calls you and says, "Hey, this place is really good. Let's go out in the weekend and let's go, hang out over there." Then you cut the call, keep it down, and you go and do your research. You search on Google, you search for this place, and then you click on another link, and then you end up on Instagram. You get to see about this place, and it seems pretty interesting. You go and look at all these different pictures and all these different reels, and you're scrolling and you're seeing all the different videos of this particular place, and you're like, wow, we're going to go there. And then before you know it, the you find another reel and you start consuming that, and then that leads you to something else, and then that reel, somebody says something, and then you go to YouTube, and you go on YouTube and you search for that, and then you find something else over there, and then as you're watching that video, it pulls you into a YouTube short, and before you know it, it's lunch break, and you wasted 2 hours of your time. Why? Because you got that one phone call. Now, what if you had done this research later? What if you had gone and actually just trusted that, okay, this place is good, let's go there and check it out? This is the problem with multitasking. A lot of people think multitasking is good, or they feel that multitasking is a badge of honor. Yes, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do my work, and I can learn something. But a lot of studies have proved that multitasking actually lowers your IQ because it affects your brain when you have multiple things to work on. So, I want to tell you that there are three kinds of work. For some types of work, you could do multitasking in the sense, let's say if you're doing something repetitive, you can listen to music. Like I love building systems, anything that's not really going to be consuming the thought side of it too much, or the contemplation side of my brain too much. You can, and if it's a repetitive task, you can use music, okay, or you can use something else. Now that is not multitasking. You're actually reinforcing your thought process, or you're anchoring your brains to achieve something using supplement, okay, or an additional thing. Now let's talk about the types of work. The first kind of work is consumption, learning. When you're consuming information, okay, you're listening to this podcast, you're watching a video on YouTube, you're watching something else. So when you are consuming information, you got to be focused, because if you are having a WhatsApp tab open on the other side, or a Facebook or an Instagram on the other side, you may be listening to me speak, but you're not capturing the essence of the information. It is just sound hitting you. You're not able to decode and make sense of it. And did you know that when you're doing focused work, when you get distracted, it takes at least 20 minutes to come back to that zone. It takes 20 minutes to come back to that zone of productivity. And that's where the magic is. And that's why most people today, they are not productive. They're not able to achieve things, because we are living in a world full of pop-ups. There's a pop-up buzzing on your phone every second. Somebody does a WhatsApp post, a WhatsApp message, an Instagram post, a Facebook ping, a YouTube ping. Something keeps buzzing all the time. This is really killing the brains of an entire generation. And most people don't realize that. So the first kind of work is a consumption kind of work. And when it comes to consumption, again, not recommended to multitask. Okay. Not recommended. Because when you focus, when you take notes, you're able to extract the essence out of it. Okay. Again, there's a second kind of a task, which is contemplation kind of work, or processing knowledge. So let's say you have listened to this podcast. I want you to go and sit after this podcast just for 15 to 20 minutes. Put your phone on airplane mode and just see if you can process this and bring out the brilliance or the essence of this topic for you, for yourself. Even though I'm giving you general information, see how can this apply to you. Which area of your life can you apply this? How can you uh, do a basic mental audit in your own life to see Where is your multitasking more and where is your multitasking less? Okay. So the second type of work that most of us do is a contemplation work, and this is very, very important. The processing side is what helps you bring out the best. For example, when you're cooking food, there are a lot of ingredients. You get the recipe, and then you put all of the ingredients into the into the cooker and you start cooking. But it has to cook, right? Before you actually bring the food out and start serving and and experiencing the food, there is a processing that has to happen. Now, many of us, we don't allow processing to happen. We consume, consume, consume more and more and more and more, and there's no output. Okay. So the second kind of work is processing. And for processing, also, multitasking is not good. And the third kind of a work that we all do is creation, creating things. First is consumption, second is contemplation, and third is creation. Okay. The creation is more of expressing whatever you have learned. So whatever you have learned, you have processed. Whatever you have processed, you express. Just like you have many ingredients, it cooks. You allowed to process, and then you express that. You bring out the food in, and you decorate it in a beautiful way for people to consume and eat. Now, for all these three types of work, which are the most important kinds of work, multitasking is not going to help. Imagine if you're cooking and you're doing something else, okay? Or you just put something else and there's no mind going behind it. Or imagine if you are serving the food, but there's no diligence in serving. You use whatever comes your way and there's no good presentation of things. Or even when you're learning and when you're starting a process, you're just doing everything randomly. When everything starts randomly, and if it is processed randomly, and if you're presenting randomly, there is going to be a very poor output in terms of efficiency. And that's what multitasking does. Most people today, I'm mentioning this again, they put multitasking as a badge of honor, thinking that, wow, I'm a multitasker, I can do everything. But I'm so sorry to say that your consumption is going to be at the poorest quality, your contemplation is going to be at the poorest quality, and your creation is also going to be at the poorest quality. And some of the best and most successful people in the world who have achieved great things, they have used the power of focus, and the power of focus to get to focus on one thing and to get that one thing done without doing multiple things. So I want to give you a few tips. How can you really improve your ability to get results by overcoming this thing called multitasking? Okay. The first thing is to clearly define your goals or what your objectives are, okay, before you start anything. Because once you know what your objective is, then you'll be in a better position to either say yes or no to whatever action that you want to take. Okay. So the first step is define your objective, everything in every area of your life. Okay. The second step is to gather information. So if, let's say, your goal is to grow in your career, second step is to gather information, is to get into the consumption mode so that you can achieve that particular goal. Second step is gather. Now, along with gather, the immediate next step is to eliminate distractions that is going to take you towards the goal. So suppose now you know that you want to become a really good chef. You start gathering information, and suddenly you see an ad of artificial intelligence, okay, AI. Now, if you know that your goal is to become a chef, you'll not consider looking and clicking on that ad. So you're going to be eliminating things that are not taking you towards that goal if it is not relevant or falling in line with your goal. So the third step is eliminate distractions. The fourth step to overcome multitasking is to use that knowledge, whatever you have gathered. Okay. You have the goal, objective, you have gathered some knowledge. You maybe want to become a chef. You eliminate the distractions and you go and actually do something with it. Okay. Use that knowledge. Fifth step is application of that knowledge over a longer period of time. So there's a continuous. It's not that you do it you do it once and then you just and you've mastered it. No, masters have failed more times than a student has ever tried. So it's all about repetition of the same thing again and again and again. So a repetitive application of that knowledge is step number 5. So step number 1 is setting a goal, objective, gather, eliminate, continuous application. Okay. And then what happens? Yeah, use, and then and continuous application. And then once you have applied continuously, go back to the gathering step, because you can gather new information based on your own application. And this cycle, right, is going to help you overcome multitasking. Otherwise, you're very random. You're going to be doing multiple things. I'm just going to reiterate this once again, giving the example of a chef. You want to become a chef, a world class chef. Number one, if that's the objective, that's the goal you've set. Step two is you gather information. Step three, you eliminate things that are not going to take you there. Step four, you use it. Step five, you continuously apply that knowledge. And as you're applying that knowledge, you're going to be learning more. You'll know what are your gap areas. Step six, you go back to gather. Step seven, you again eliminate, use. So this process is the fastest way for you to kill multitasking and get to your goals faster. And of course, there are some things, like I mentioned, some tasks uh, where you can multitask. Like, say you're driving and you can listen to music. Okay, you're spending time with your kids and maybe doing something else. Okay, again thinking about multiple other things. But when it comes to like achieving things, always remember there are three steps: consumption, contemplation, creation. We as humans have the power to create. We have an amazing mind. Many of us underestimate the power of the mind. We hardly use 5 to 10% of what our mind can really do. Why? Because everybody is living in autopilot. Everyone is just multitasking. So start living a more deliberate life. Be very specific on what you want to do and where you want to go. And apply these tips that I shared with you: goal, gather, eliminate, use, apply, and then again gather. And when you go with this process, you will be able to get more done in less time. You'll be in a state of flow. And and if you're able to work in chunks of 1 to 2 hours, putting your phone in airplane mode and deleting all the apps from your phone, you'll be surprised how much you can achieve. I hope this podcast has inspired you. If you found this useful, please share your notes, or if you have any other ideas, please tag me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and also tag Success Gyan, so that we can continue this conversation on social media. And I would like to hear more from you on what do you think about multitasking? What do you think? Is it good or bad from your perspective? I've just shared my perspective based on my experience, but I'm sure there's more perspectives to it. All the best. Catch you in the next episode.